Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Asherz, and this is
Tobias.
Tobias. You already know. How was your weekend?
Oh boy. It was all right. It was all right. Um, you know, I had a bunch of stuff that I was thinking about as it was happening because I was like, I'm going to get asked how my weekend is. It's inevitable. So
Okay.
remember this while you're doing it so you could talk about it later. And then I just forgot all of it.
Yeah,
So
that
because
happens
that's
usually.
that's how it always goes.
Yeah.
No, I had a good weekend. I didn't do a lot of anything super exciting. I've been working on the book, like the new book, obviously. That takes up a lot of my time.
Mhm.
Caught the follow up episode of Quiet on Set, which, I mean, I I expected more out of it. It seemed
Sure.
like they added this extra episode, they made a big deal out of it, and then you watch it and it's just rehashing stuff that they already talked about. I don't know. It didn't contribute a lot from my perspective. So whatever. Um, and we've been watching the shit out of that Mean Girls, like the Mean Girls
Oh, okay.
murder
Yeah, how is
series.
that?
It is better than I thought it would be.
Okay.
It's there isn't a ton of differences in a lot of the episodes because they follow kind of a common formula, but it's still interesting. Like the last one we watched was the Texas case of the woman who like stole her friend's baby and killed her, like
Oh,
killed her and stole her baby. Like this
okay.
was all over the news. I think this just happened like I don't know a year or two ago. But yeah, I don't know. It's if you like true crime kind of stuff, then I think you would enjoy the Mean Girl Murders series. But I don't. It's nothing that like I would say is so compelling that somebody who isn't otherwise interested in that kind of stuff should go out of their way to watch it. I guess.
Okay. I had no idea that it was dark. That's interesting.
Well, it's called like I think I had, unless I'm getting the name completely wrong. Which again, as an old guy that nobody has ever accused of being cool, it's entirely possible that I'm like I have the name slightly wrong or something. But
Sure.
like it is called like Mean Girl Murders or something. So that should be I don't know. That seems to indicate a certain level of darkness in the subject matter.
I guess that's true. Well, I guess my knowledge of it is just the association with Mean Girls, and that's really the extent. So
Right. So I mean, didn't they remade Mean Girls as a musical? And that came out
they did.
last year, right? Or was
Yeah.
that 20 is that 2023 or
Uh,
2024?
I think it was the end of last year. I
End of
don't
last year. Okay. I mean, I
remember.
haven't seen it. I don't think I'm the
Yeah.
target demographic or anything, but
Yeah. Which is, funny because, well, obviously, the name of the show is very much a rip straight from Mean Girls. So you'd think I'd be more of a fan of anything, surrounding it. But no, we just thought it was a fun name to come up with. So we did. Um, at the time, and it's this is the name of the show now. Interesting. Wow. Yeah, I watched some things. I didn't see anything that I haven't seen before. I did watch Biodome this weekend.
oh,
Um
I'm
just
sorry.
just because I just thought, hey, does this hold up? Um
Does
you
this
know
Pauly Shore movie from the 90s hold up?
yeah.
Is not a question that I would ever imagine needs answering.
Well, here's the thing. I really enjoy Encino Man. Okay, that's a damn good movie.
Okay.
And Son-in-Law's pretty good. Biodome. I never really enjoyed it as a younger person. I decided to revisit it as an adult. And man, it doesn't hold up. And I know that there's going to be people that are going to be like, "Oh man, fuck you," and I'm going to get angry emails, right? How can you talk about Biodome so terribly? Like nostalgia doesn't make things good.
No.
Just because you have fond memories of something doesn't mean that it's good. And that's how I felt about Biodome. It wasn't very good.
I was the right age to like those movies, and I did not. I'm sure Pauly Shore is a nice enough guy if you know him in person, but that fucking character, the Weasel, was never funny to me. It was always the most irritating fucking thing I could think of.
See,
It's like it was designed to make me hate it.
well, and it is. I mean, that's that is the point. They came up with it and they said, hey, that guy Tobias Whalen.
Mm,
We're gonna make sure that he fucking hates his
I knew
character.
it. I
And
knew it. It's the
you
only
know,
thing that makes sense.
mission accomplished.
Yeah,
No,
they did a great
I
job.
enjoy the character, but I like goofy dumb shit like that. Like I really enjoy that. I myself, God, this was something that I that I revealed to my patrons a while ago. I was a horror host for a very short amount of time, and it was like my horror host show. So first of all, I filmed it all in my friend's sex dungeon that she has, like a full on velvet and leather sex dungeon. And the way that I describe it to people, because this fucking thing is never going to see the light of day, I hope, is it's a mix between Elvira and Pee Wee's Playhouse. Like, because it's
Okay.
just fucking goofy. And I like that kind of weird, fucking over the top humor. Like, usually to me, it's real. I enjoy it. It's comforting. It's fun. It's stupid, and I like that. So normally I enjoy Pauly Shore as a character, but man, this one just did not hit. It was just gross. It's very dated, so it doesn't it doesn't stand the test of time at all. The jokes are very disgusting. But I will say, like, there is a part where, like, so they both have. I mean, if you guys haven't seen Biodome, let me tell you, they both have girlfriends, and there's a part where these women come up to make out with them, and Polly Shore's like, "I have a girlfriend. We can't do this," and I was surprised. I was like, "Oh,
Good
that's
for
pretty."
him.
That's pretty woke, right, for Biodome. So, but the whole point
Wow.
of the movie is they get stuck in this biodome because they're trying to lie to the girlfriends about how much they care about the environment, and they fucking don't, and all they're trying to do is get laid. So, bad on him. But anyway, I did that, and I regret it. So,
That's fair. There's a lesson in there, and I think you've learned it. So we don't need to harp on it too much. But it's funny that you mentioned Pee Wee's Playhouse because I loved Pee Wee's Playhouse. Like I
really,
watched the shit out of that show when
yeah,
I was a kid. Watched all the movies, thought they were great. But that character isn't irritating, and he's not like meant to be irritating.
yeah, he's very innocent.
Yeah, but like, because literally, like, the name of this, like, Pauly Shore came up with this character, the Weasel or whatever, and then some fucking Hollywood producer, I assume Satan, decided that this fucking character had to be in like 100 terrible comedies in the 1990s,
Yeah.
and it's literally it's like nails on the chalkboard of my soul. Like just to hear, and I'm not talking about Pauly Shore, the specific character that he plays in like every movie, which is a character. It's not him,
Right.
like is just the worst thing I can fucking imagine. Like just so irritating.
I
Drives
just
me
like it because, like,
crazy.
nobody actually, like, acts like that, you know what I mean? Like, and I just if they did, it'd be so ridiculous, but they don't,
Right.
But no, I understand. Not everybody likes Pauly Shore, and that's fine too, like,
Well, you
that's
can see him in like if you watch like oh, what the hell was that movie? Phantom of the Mall. Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. I do know what
Yeah,
you're talking about.
right. Like he's in that. He's got a supporting role in that movie, and
That's
he's just like a
right.
regular. He's just like a regular guy.
He is just that was, like, one of his first movies, I think.
Yeah,
Well,
he's not
not
annoying at all. He's just a character in this
yeah,
movie, and
he's
it's
just a normal
totally
person,
fine.
yeah. I mean, not that, Phantom of the Mall was, like, a big hit or anything, but
Well, we've both heard of it,
well, yeah,
so
that's fair. But yeah, no, he can play himself. He can just be him, and but then I mean, but it was his character that got popular, and so
right. Like everybody loved the weasel again, presumably because some legion in hell decided that was the best way to attack us here on the mortal plane.
It was all part of the plan.
Seriously.
We fell for it. We ate it up. But yeah, I did that, and then today I saw the eclipse. So that was pretty cool. We can talk about that for a minute. Little disappointed that there was no rapturing or mass invasion, or whatever it is people are saying on social media about it. Not that I expected any of those things to happen, but you always kind of hope, right? You're always
That's
like,
true.
as crazy as these things are, I'm still rooting for y'all. Like, I still want you to be right about it once. Just one time. And it didn't happen, but I will tell you, man, it's crazy. It's really a fucking weird, very surreal experience. Like, we're actually, I mean, for all of our time travelers out there, we're recording this on Monday, so it's, it is post eclipse. It did happen already. But man, I am like fucked up for the day. Like, because I don't know. I guess right? You're like, oh, okay, it's going to get completely fucking dark outside, as if it's night. But you don't really expect how you're gonna feel while it happens. It's kind of intimidating and like really scary, actually.
Hmm.
I was a little nervous for a minute. I was like, man, maybe something is gonna happen. Nothing did, but like everything gets quiet. Like, you're in the middle of the day, right? You're having fun. It was a beautiful day outside. It's a nice 75, right? Great, nice clear skies out, and the birds are happy and they're having a good time. And then it starts getting fucking dark out, and then the whole world shuts up. Like, all the birds stop. Like, they're not singing anymore. They're confused. I think it's time to go to bed. And there's a fucking white circle of light in the sky that you can freely look at. And everybody was cheering. Like, so I was at my mom's house, and she lives like right down the road from a really big park. There's a bunch of people there.
Uh-huh.
And everybody's cheering for the fucking moon and the sun. And it was just, that was weird. it was
Okay, that
it was
part's weird.
good, but it was strange. So, and then, 2 minutes later, it's over. And yeah, all the streetlights come on and everything. It's really fucking weird. And then
Huh.
now you're back. It's like being transported, like, in time. It's very strange. Maybe we were, maybe we were. And now I'm living in the universe that, I don't know. That's the universe where Nelson Mandela died, a long time ago. Anyway, so I saw the eclipse, and it was great. And I don't know. No, in all seriousness, I think that people, I know some people that traveled to get to the path of totality, and let me tell you, I will do that in the future. Within reason.
Really?
It's definitely worth it to have that experience. It was very interesting. There's not really anything like it. So it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat.
Well, good to know. Yeah, as far as I am aware, now I haven't really left the house today. So if a bunch of people disappeared, I wouldn't necessarily know.
Fair.
But is my understanding that the rapture did not
Yeah.
happen.
It didn't.
Okay,
It didn't.
so
Um,
so no rapture, unfortunately, which I just for like traffic, that would be nice.
yeah.
But no, so we missed out on that shit again. Um, and there was no like any other end times kind of stuff. I didn't notice anything. Wasn't raining fire, or
Yeah.
I didn't notice uh, like a phantom planet appearing in the sky, like no Nibiru or whatever. Um, yeah, I feel like we just missed out on everything. It's almost like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's almost like all of those fucking people just made a bunch of shit up and none of it was
What?
real. I'm
No.
right. I'm as surprised as
These
anybody.
people are trustworthy and credible. I've known them for all of 2 seconds while reading their comments on the internet. Like, I know in my heart that they are trustworthy people.
Right. Yeah, it's almost as though all of these ridiculous conspiracies are fucking bullshit.
Wow.
Weird. Like people can just make up whatever they want on the internet. That seems dangerous. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, it really does. I had somebody come at me on social media. Let's talk about it for a second.
Good,
And
do it.
they were like, I was just saying that I made a post basically saying that, I hope the rapture does happen. So then all the extremist Christians, right, get left behind and then they fucking learn a lesson that they're a piece of shit, just like the rest of us. And,
Sure.
you know, um, somebody's like, "Oh man, these," and everybody's like, "Huh, yeah, those extremist Christians," like they do. And he's like, "Man, there's a lot of hate in these comments." And I'm like, "Well, not really. I mean, extremism is bad. It doesn't matter if it's Christianity or whatever it is. I don't care. Pick a topic, right? If you are an extremist about a topic, then you're an asshole." Because
Oh
the
yeah.
world's just not black and white like that. And, it just doesn't work that way. And he's like, well, you're making fun of these people's beliefs. It isn't, believing in stuff like cryptids like the same thing? And, honestly, I kind of had to think about it for a second. And yeah, it really is. I mean, if you go on these community, these, I was gonna say message boards. Wow, that really shows how old I am. If you go on these groups and these chats or whatever it is the kids are using, these TikToks, yeah, you'll definitely see an abundance of people who are extremists in their beliefs when it comes to cryptozoology or ufology or whatever paranormal topic you want to call it.
Sure. I make fun of those people too.
Right, and they're fucking nuts. you know and that's when I had to explain to him, yeah, well, I mean, the point is that I have to do my job correctly and actually try to get some fact-based evidence in here with some of these stories and tales, and that's my part of it. That's what I do. And um but yeah, absolutely, it could be the same fucking thing, of course. Yeah, they hold
Yeah.
hands together. Extremist beliefs are extremist beliefs, and they're just not good for anybody. So
It just sounds like somebody doing their best to argue from a very unstable position. Like he didn't really have a point, but he was trying to compare it to something else. And it's like, yeah, dude, joke's on you. Like I already think believing in things without evidence is fucking
right.
stupid. So you can keep piling on as many examples of that as you want, and I will agree on every single one of them.
Right. Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
what at what point do you think I'm going to say it's totally fine to just believe things without evidence? Because you're going to be waiting a long fucking
Right.
time.
And that's, I mean, that's what I said. Look, here's the thing. I saw the Mothman, and I don't fucking blame a single person for looking at me and going, "No, you didn't," or prove it, right? So then I have made it my job to now prove it. I have to find ways to kind of prove. And will I ever be able to do so? I don't fucking know, but it's worth a shot to
Sure.
me to try, and that's why I have to look at fact-based evidence and break it apart. That's the difference. Now, if I said I saw the Mothman and you can go fuck yourself if you don't believe me, that's the difference between being an extremist and following logic and reason.
Oh, sure. Well, even like e- even somebody tell me to go fuck
Right.
myself if I don't believe him, it's like fine, I guess I'll go fuck myself. But
No
like
one does it better
it's
than
the
me.
people yeah, right. Um it's these people who okay, it is fine to believe in something without
Absolutely.
evidence. I'm not saying that people aren't allowed to do that. I'm not the thought police. It is totally fine. I'm sure you have your own reasons for believing in this thing, whatever they are. I don't care. The issue is when you expect other people,
Right.
no, demand
Yes.
other people believe in something without evidence. At that point, get
Right.
fucked because that is such an unreasonable position. And so when people are upset at like hardcore evangelicals or any kind of extremist
Mhm.
philosophy, it's because not because they are out there just believing whatever they believe quietly by
Right.
themselves. No, it's because that's not fucking enough. They demand that you believe it too. And at that point, they can eat shit. And we're going to make fun of them and do everything we can to make sure they're not in charge of anything for us ever, because I don't want to have to do whatever it is that you believe in without
Yeah.
evidence. And I shouldn't have to. Like, that's insane.
Right.
That's something a crazy person would do.
Exactly. And so the point was kind of missed entirely. But I just thought I thought it would make for some interesting banter on these topics.
Oh, sure.
As one of the more I would say, obviously we're not hardcore skeptics over here on Wednesdays we talk weird, but as one of the more skeptical shows out there compared to some of these other shows, I mean, it's fun to believe. I want to believe these topics. I want to, but I have to have the evidence to do so. And sometimes there is evidence to believe in these topics. And sometimes
Sure.
you just don't fucking know because you weren't there, right? And that's you just fucking take someone's word for it. But yeah, I mean, just that was kind of the point. Again, extremism, even within the paranormal, especially within the paranormal, is gross, and we should stop doing that.
Oh, totally. Well, people get really kind of preemptively upset, honestly, when you bring religion into it anyway, because there's a big persecution complex amongst not all, but a lot of
Yeah.
Christians these days, because their beliefs aren't as ubiquitous as they once were.
Mhm.
And so instead of Christianity being like the default for people in this country now, it's just one of many competing
Yeah.
philosophies. And so that can be threatening to folks, and they can interpret that as being persecuted because they're not as special as they used to be. But my point there is like nobody listening should think that I don't like Christians, that I hate Christianity, that I have some kind of bias against Christianity specifically, because that's not the case. Like I was raised Methodist. My parents are lovely
Mhm.
people. They're still Christians. I have no problem with Jesus. He sounds like a fucking rad dude who I bet would hate organized religion
Right.
today. Um, so if you want to count me as a Christian for thinking Jesus is awesome, fine, cool, sign me up. But I'm not probably not going to join like your church with the catty fucking old lady cliques or
Yeah.
whatever, because I don't think that's what he was about.
Yeah.
But anyway, not to digress too much. Yeah, I have no problem with anybody's religion or beliefs or whatever, as long as they're not trying to impose them on everybody else. Like,
Right.
do whatever you want. I've had my own experiences, just like you, where crazy shit has happened to me, just the craziest fucking shit. And if I don't talk about it a ton unless somebody asks me directly, but if somebody doesn't believe that, or they have their own belief about what it actually represents, like they have some kind of mundane explanation that they think works better. Even though I personally have discounted
Right.
those, that's their business and I don't hold it against them. I think that's fine. That's great. Whatever, like I can't expect somebody to believe something without evidence. I can't.
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
You'd be doing a bad job if if you did. I don't know.
yeah, it's just not rational. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to get you any closer to the truth, to the facts, or any enlightenment whatsoever. And that's just, I don't know. Former host of the show, Pat O, he went to a Catholic school, an all boys Catholic school, and goes to church every Sunday. you know
Yeah.
I certainly don't hate Christians. I hate anybody who thinks that they have the right to tell me or anyone else how to do or live our lives. Anybody who imposes on another person, that is not the way you should conduct yourself, in my opinion. And, I have very much a philosophy of be kind to everybody and be inclusive to everybody, including Christians. If anybody, for whatever reason, thinks that I hate them, I don't. But just, mind your own fucking business. You know,
Yeah. Right.
that's,
So many problems could be solved if people were to just listen to that one simple motto:
yeah.
mind your own fucking
I
business.
mean, it doesn't have anything to do with me. But I have spent a lot of time this week removing people from social media, which has felt really good because I don't have to put up with things that I don't want to put up with. And if that includes seeing your conspiracies or your bad opinions on things or you coming after me for some dumb shit, it's whatever. I don't have to, you're not entitled to my time. So,
Very true. That is 100% true. That's the thing people don't seem to understand about social media is you're not nobody, like not you,
right.
not me, not anybody listening is obligated to let somebody talk shit to
No.
you constantly. I've had people who claimed to be friendly, were like, oh, like we're in the same friend circles, and so like maybe like we would be considered friends or whatever. But all they would ever do on social media, they would never comment anything positive on anything. They would wait until I said anything at all that they could fucking find issue
Right.
with, and then try to argue with me
Yep.
about it. And I'm like, all you fucking do is shit on
Yeah.
me every single chance you get. We are not friends, and I don't owe you a fucking thing. And the day I figured that
Oh,
out was the day that social media got a lot
yeah.
easier, because now I'm not friends with them because we were never friends to begin with. And yeah, just unfriend them, unfollow them, fucking block them if you have to. Who gives a shit? You don't know anybody anything.
Right.
None of us do, especially not on social
Oh yeah.
media.
Oh yeah, I've been very strict about even like the passive aggressive comments that you could take either way. Like, is this person joking? I don't fucking give a shit enough to figure it out. Bye.
Right? Like, do I know you? Like, how would I even know if you were
Like,
joking?
I'm not
Why?
here for it. One guy today posted, and he's like local to my area, and he made this big long post about, well, I'm not gonna go look at the eclipse, like just because
Fucking
I
don't.
believe in, living. This is what I believe in, living in the moment, and that we have heroes and moments right now that we don't appreciate. And it's like, isn't fucking living in the moment taking 2 minutes out of your day to go outside and go look at the eclipse? Like, what the fuck? So I just unfriended him because I don't have time to deal with that edge lord bullshit. Like, like, oh
Right?
man, you're so cool. You
Like,
missed out on a once in a lifetime event. That's really worth bragging about. I would tell you.
find a worse fucking take challenge level
Yeah.
impossible is what that
Right.
is. Like, what the
Yeah, and
fuck?
it's just like, okay, dude, that's good for you. Congratulations. I saw it. It was pretty fucking sweet, and I'll probably travel to go see another one because it was so goddamn cool.
Yeah.
Like,
It was cool here, and we only got like 87%
yeah,
coverage or whatever. It still looked
like
rad.
it's that is definitely one of those things that you should take time out of your day to appreciate. But what the fuck do I know? But anyway, that's been. I'll stop
Yeah.
bitching now. Get off my soapbox. How about that? Stop bitching about people. I saw the total
I had a
eclipse.
good rant in there. That was fun.
I saw it today. It was cool. I think people should check that out in the future. There are more. These things happen a lot, actually. It's just a matter of whether or not they're happening in your area. That's where the rare occurrence comes into
True.
play. So if you have the chance and you are able to take time out of your life to go plan seeing this type of event, I can't recommend it enough. So there's that. Let's talk about some news.
News.
My news, I have one news and
A single
one
news.
single news. And it's not really news, but it's kind of news. Um I just got off the soapbox. Let me fucking pull it back up here. Let me get it out again.
Dust it off. Get back up there.
These
You're not
these
done.
Mothman pictures.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
We got to talk about them. Just at least for a split second. There have been these pictures going around of allegedly the Mothman. You may see it pop up on various social medias. Different social medias are claiming that it was taken in different areas, depending on who you are. Oh man, somebody captured this in fucking BFE, Alabama, or whatever. Some people are like, oh, this was caught in Baltimore before the bridge collapsed or, was hit or whatever. It's been everywhere. And these pictures are really old. They are from 2016. They were allegedly taken in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, by an unknown person. Now, he's not necessarily unknown. Some local researchers in that area do know who he is and say that, they've talked to him. They believe that, like, he was a genuine person that did take these photos thinking it was something anomalous. And he probably did. My personal opinion is that these photos aren't anomalous. I think they're just an owl carrying a snake, carrying a rope, maybe trash dangling off of them. It looks a lot like it's got legs, whatever it is, but there's some fucked up legs. And let me remind you, the original witnesses that said that Mothman had legs described very muscular legs. These are not that. Tobias, have you seen these pictures floating around?
I have. Well, I've been seeing them for
Right.
years at this point. And yeah, I would think of some kind of bird carrying something in its mouth makes the most sense. It's interesting that people say that there's this real witness and they've really talked to this person. So they should be able to answer questions like, well, what direction was this thing supposedly flying in? Because the wing shape, if you look at it, would support your hypothesis, because things that fucking fly don't have wings that curve up like that.
Yeah,
Like that's
true.
not how wings
Yeah.
work. And so for whatever we think it's carrying in its mouth to actually represent, or in its beak to actually represent legs, then it would have to have wings that curved
Hmm.
upwards, which I don't think would allow it to fly personally. Um, and so there's a couple things going on here, I think, or potentially going on here. I think that either somebody knows better and knows that this thing really is a bird. Um, as far as these investigators, these local researchers are concerned, or the person who took the photographs is not being honest and saying that it was doing stuff that it wasn't fucking doing.
Yeah.
Because you're right, nothing about this lends itself well to being an actual winged humanoid. It doesn't. The shape doesn't look right. It doesn't. It it's fine for like a silhouette if you kind of squint a little bit or you take your glasses off or something. But as far as actually withstanding scrutiny, like, no, it's obviously not fucking Mothman. Like, come on,
Yeah.
get serious. Like, it's clearly anything else,
And anything
and
else.
probably a bird carrying
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, I think it's a bird. But like I said, the allegedly the eyewitness thinks whatever it was weird and anomalous, and but that doesn't mean the eyewitness didn't get it wrong either. Like, that's definitely a possibility. You're right, it could be maybe the researchers didn't ask the right questions. Maybe they didn't. I've never talked to the guy, so I can't say what he
Right.
said. I just know through the grapevine, right? Somebody who talked to him told me, and who knows? Um, but it's not Mothman in Mexico. It's not Mothman in Alabama. These aren't new pictures. These have been around for a long time. And let me tell you guys something. Here's something really cool. I'm going to teach you about something real quick. Whatever type of phone you have, I don't know what it is. You got an iPhone or Android, whatever. Go to your app store, right? Whatever your app store, your iTunes or whatever the fuck, and download Google Lens. Okay, and right there, there's an app that you can actually take any picture, you can save it, and you can upload it right to Google Lens, and it will take you like to where like this stuff originates from. Like it will show you everywhere that this picture is posted, associated with any article you would like. And if you just spend not even really 5 minutes, all you can do is kind of skim through the different articles and you can kind of see what the earliest date is. And then you can kind of track these photos. You can do this with anything, pictures of Bigfoot, um, pictures of UFOs. It's a really useful tool. So I thought that instead of yelling at people again, I'd give you guys some pointers. It's actually really easy to do research on your own. You don't need me or Tobias to tell you that these pictures are old. You could have figured that out yourself. you know, I don't know. Tobias, you ever used
Hold
Google
on now.
Lens?
No, well, I am familiar with Google image
Yeah,
searches,
reverse search.
certainly.
Yeah,
So I usually do them from my laptop. But yeah, using an app on your phone is totally fine too. Like, it's basically the exact same thing. But yeah, I just and I know people are going to hear this and they're going to get upset because they want it to be fucking Mothman, and they're going to do that thing where they say I'm not fun,
yeah,
and it hurts my feelings because I'm fucking super fun. If you hung out with me, you would know that. But like, I'm so I'm sorry. It's not fucking
it's
Mothman.
not.
Like, we
Yeah.
all want it to be Mothman, but nobody ever described Mothman as having like legs made out of bendy straws or whatever the fuck that is.
Pipe cleaners.
Like, Yeah, seriously. Like it's just obviously
Yeah,
not. Like, come on.
yeah. It's just not. And sorry. I guess on behalf of Mothman, I apologize. Um, you're right. People want to believe it so bad. They don't care. They don't care about the facts. They don't want them.
Right.
But man, I just saw a disappoint. Like I saw people that I was disappointed to see that they were posting this. I'm like, and I'm not trying to be that asshole. You don't know what you don't know. But like I said, when I come across a post like this, the very first thing I do, run it through Google Lens because I'm on my phone anyway. Chances are I'm already on my phone. I just scrolled by
Sure.
it, run it through Google Lens, and bam, there you go. It's not that like there was one going around of pictures of a tiger that were allegedly in Texas, and those weren't real either. Well, I mean, they were real pictures,
What?
but they didn't come from Texas. It was just that wasn't the story. Um,
Of course.
and it takes, like I said, just less than 5 minutes to do that, and then you don't look like a moron. Like you don't have to look dumb, and you're helping. Share it, say that, share it, and say, hey, these pictures aren't. These are from this. This is the earliest article I found, and guess what? You're a cryptozoologist now.
Yeah, right. If you really care about this stuff, really,
Really,
if you really care and you really do want it to be true, then you should have a vested interest in examining data and the evidence and discerning what is valuable and what is not, like what makes good evidence and what doesn't. Because, and I can't fucking stress this enough, I say it all the time, I'm going to say it again now. If we don't disprove the things that we can, right? Like if we don't bother to do our due diligence, like why would anybody believe us
right?
about anything? Like
Yeah,
why? Like if we don't take the time to prove the things that we can, like why would anybody believe us about the things that we
yeah,
can't, I guess is really where I was going with that. um so if for instance I've got these Mothman photographs that are obviously something else, anything but Mothman, and I don't spend any time explaining that to people, so they know what they are, then when I finally have something anomalous, when I really have something that I don't know what it is, why would anybody fucking believe me? They would just go, "Oh, that's more bullshit," like those fucking fake ass Mothman
right.
photos. Like
Exactly.
nobody listen to that fucking moron. He doesn't know what he's talking
Yeah.
about.
No, it's very we should be past the point. Like people like you and I have existed long before you and I have. Um investigators have been people have been looking into the paranormal since they've existed. you know.
Yes,
We should be past the point of trying to convince our community, and we should now be onwards to trying to convince the scientific community that they should give it the time of day. And
right.
but there's so many people still in the community, they're like, oh, fuck science, and it's like, but we need it. We need it.
Oh, totally.
um
I just thought of the actual. Okay, I got my own phrase wrong like two times in a row. It's sorry. It's supposed to be, if we don't explain the things we can, why would anybody believe us about the things we can't? So sorry, everybody. Thanks for sitting through like 3 minutes of me babbling.
don't you have a degree in fucking English? Shouldn't you know your phrases
I
better?
do. I forgot my own catchphrase.
Should
So
tattoo it on your
it's the
arm, that way
eclipse.
you can take a look at it. It's the eclipse. Blame it on the eclipse. Oh yeah, we're in a different
Yeah.
dimension now or whatever. So
Yeah, I got by the, like the thought was raptured
now
away.
you have a you actually don't have a degree in English anymore. Now you have a degree in fucking geology.
Oh boy, worthless.
Right. But no, yeah, exactly. I mean, we can't, yes, it's fun to have fun. I like to have fun too. I agree with Tobias. I'm lots of fun. But I have to do my job. I can't just go, yep. Can you imagine if like doctors and stuff like they just didn't like do their jobs, and like you came in and you're like, well, I've got this open wound, and obviously it's got MRSA or something in it, but like Neosporin should work, and the doctor's like, yeah, you're right, Neosporin works. It's fucking setting you on your
Yeah.
way.
Or if your doctor was like, wouldn't it be cool if we could just hold a heated knife blade to your arm to cauterize the wound? And you were like, I don't know, dude. I don't think that's real. I think you just saw that in the movie, and the doctor was like, nah, man, it would be really cool. And because I think it would be cool, I decided it was
Right.
true. This is totally fine. Like that's what fucking people do,
Yeah.
basically. That is the medical equivalent to people just deciding to believe in something because they think it's fucking
I
cool.
think it'd be cool, right? I mean, and it just doesn't work that way. And I wish it did, but it doesn't. So
Oh yeah,
that was my news.
that would be rad. I'd be fucking, riding Battle Cat around everywhere or whatever. If I could just believe things into
It's
existence.
important to talk about stuff that is obviously new news, right? Newsworthy, and hot and trendy and right off the presses, right? But it's also important that we revisit some of these old topics. And that's one thing that I say too, is that some people that see those pictures, or see these posts or whatever, they're just now entering these topics. Like they haven't been, they didn't fucking grow up watching, fucking Leonard Nimoy, explain anomalous phenomena. They're just now breaking into these topics. And so every time you share something about these topics, you are a representation of everybody in it. And when you share something like that, it just looks really bad on the rest of us and it turns a lot of people off, so don't do it.
True.
Don't do it. If you want to get bitches, then you need to share honest and truthful information. That's the key to getting bitches. So,
Oh yeah, nothing is hotter than not being a fucking
yeah.
idiot.
it's, it's true. So, I'm just saying, it give you a little motivation. Anyway, Google Lens, check that shit out. It's so easy. So that's my news.
All right. I have a couple of news stories. One of which I sent you
Mhm.
already. So did you have a chance to look at that
Yeah,
video?
I
Okay.
I check the website every Monday.
Oh,
So
well, that's nice. All right, I'll stop sending you stuff. But this one is about an unidentified flying object reportedly caught on camera over New York
Mhm.
City. So there are a lot of these kinds of videos that you can find on a number of social media sites. You could go to 4chan or Reddit or whatever on any given day. But sometimes like they get interesting, at least from my perspective, if the video is of sufficient quality or if it's in an area that is sufficiently interesting, then I want to cover that. So this one again was reportedly filmed over New York City, and you can see some landmarks from the actual video, so it very likely was. But the video itself was posted anonymously to social media site Reddit, and shows what appears to be a saucer shaped UFO over New York City. Now, again, when I say UFO, I mean unidentified flying object. I don't mean extraterrestrial spacecraft. I don't mean Falcor the fucking luck dragon. I mean unidentified flying object. I don't know what it is. Right. So, according to the poster, the video was recorded by a friend flying back to New York City from Florida. So, in this video, an object can clearly be seen flying past the plane at a seemingly incredible speed, so fast, in fact, that it only fully appears in 4 frames. So, before I get into like some boring science mumbo jumbo, Asherz, what did you think of this video?
I enjoy it. I enjoy it because saucers are like old news now. You don't see a lot of saucers anymore, right?
Very throwback, very
It
retro.
is,
Yeah.
and it feels good. Is it something that's completely explainable? I guess I can't really think of anything off the top of my head. It looks very much disc shaped. It is moving very fast. I don't know what that could be, except maybe I don't know, someone super strong threw a frisbee. That's my explanation.
Sure. Yeah, like Hulk and the fucking and Thor were out back playing frisbee, and just one of them just got away
Just
from
fucking
them.
chucked it. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, there are, I think, a lot of possibilities. Like one of them being that it is a disc shaped UFO. Um, that really is something that just can't be explained. However, there are some things to consider. So, given that the object seems to be moving opposite the plane's heading, and this is important, it is actually unclear how much of its apparent speed is due to the movement of the plane.
Hmm.
So, a lot of people don't know this and they don't know to look for it right away. A slow or stationary object might seem to be moving very quickly due to the relative speed of the observer viewing it. So, this is actually the result of something called motion parallax, whereby objects that are closer to the observer appear to move faster than those that are farther away when the observer is in motion. So, you see this every time you drive your car, so like if you're driving in your car and there is a street sign next to you that you drive past, it's going to seem to move past very very quickly, right?
Okay.
um, but if there is an object in the distance, say somebody's house or something, it moves past much slower. Neither one of those fucking objects is moving. You're moving. And so this planes are fucking booking it all the time. Like they, even when they're landing, they're moving pretty fast, right? And so if this were something like a balloon, and I know I can hear the boos already, if it was something like a balloon that was floating and not moving very quickly, it could be the speed of the plane and the relative proximity of the object that makes the object appear to move as fast as it
Hmm.
is. It doesn't mean that the object itself is necessarily moving very quickly. And there are balloons that kind of fit the general shape of this thing, right? Like it's difficult to judge its
Sure.
distance. And the reason for that is that we don't have enough points of reference. It's always difficult to judge size and distance when you're talking about any kind of aerial object because of the limited points of reference, right? But if it was something like, say, a solar balloon, so if anybody doesn't know what those are, it's basically balloons anybody can make. You can make them out of like garbage bags and stuff, and basically they float due to sunlight, basically heating them up. And often they will be oblong in shape. They could be sort of cylindrical, right? Um, and one of them could potentially have sort of the shape that we're seeing in this video. And so were it to be floating, and this is really high for a balloon to float, don't get me wrong, but it's not impossible. um, then it wouldn't have to really be moving very much. It could be kind of floating on the current, and as the plane speeds by it, it would seem to be moving very fast, but really the plane is what's moving fast, right?
Well, and like if
So,
you ever
yeah,
like if you're driving and you see like a plastic bag of the road and you see the car in front of you passes it, because I know some people are like, well, if the plane was passing it, why wasn't the balloon all crazy? Well, if someone passes that plastic bag in front of you, the plastic bag doesn't move while the car's passing it; it moves after.
true,
So, could be why it's still kind of staying in place while the plane passes it, and it went all
sure.
crazy after.
And who knows how close it
Hmm.
is? It could be relatively big and kind of far away,
Right.
where like the passage of the plane isn't really affecting it much at all. So, and I know that's like the bummer explanation, but that doesn't have to be true because I don't have like strong enough evidence for me to say
Right.
definitively that's what it is. But it's something that we have to consider. It needs to at least be part of the conversation, right? So,
To me, it looks like a Roomba,
flying Roomba.
flying Roomba. You know?
So Hulk got super mad at his Roomba, which I understand because I have
Yep.
one of those floor vacuums. And they're fine, but they're always, I don't know, getting clogged and
So
shit or getting
stupid.
stuck
Yeah, they get
places.
stuck
Yeah.
everywhere, and it's like, mine will scream at you. I guess probably all of them do, but yeah, it'll get under the couch, and it can't figure out how to get out and again, and I'm like, "Ugh,
Stop going under the
right, stop
couch.
going there," and it starts screaming, and I'm like, oh my god, I have to. Mine actually has a setting on it where it's an actual scream, so it's literally screaming.
Turn that
I
off.
know. That'd be cool if it did. They should make Roombas with that. But no,
They
this,
should.
yeah, but it does. It kind of looks like, I mean, because it's not perfectly, at least, per the single frame, right, that we can see here. It has some detail to it a little bit, it seems. It kind of has like a little kind of spot at the top there where it's not perfectly uniform to itself, so it's not like it's a perfect shape. It looks like there's potentially some equipment on it, or God forbid if it is a balloon, different levels of helium in different places. That's for sure. Or whatever that may be. Who knows? I'm just excited to see a saucer back in the news. And also, let me point
Right.
this out, man. That guy's username, fucking hell yeah, it's need that cheese. I
If you can't trust Need That Cheese on Reddit as your source for UFO evidence, then I don't know what to tell you. You're obviously too much of a cynic.
Right.
There's just no helping
Need
you.
that cheese.
So,
He's a good dude. Good for him.
right.
But yeah, no, that's a fun one. I like it.
It is fun. Okay, so the other one I got, and this, if you want a fun one, Tennessee state legislature passes bill outlawing
Oh
chemtrails.
gosh.
Yeah, no, this is real shit. A new piece of legislation introduced to the Tennessee State Senate by Republican Steve Southerland will effectively ban chemtrails in the skies over the volunteer state. Due to an amendment added in February, the bill, which has passed, it passed in the Senate and it just passed in the House too, like April 1st, I think, with a vote of 70 to 22 to 1. It is currently headed to Governor Bill Lee so he can sign off on it, will prohibit, and this is a quote, the intentional injection, release, or dispersion by any means of chemicals, chemical compounds, substances, or apparatus within the borders of this state into the atmosphere with the express purpose of affecting temperature, weather, or the intensity of the sunlight.
Oh,
So, you may have noticed that the bill does not specifically refer to chemtrails by name. It just says affecting temperature or chemicals affecting temperature, weather, or the intensity of the sunlight. However, that still speaks directly to conspiracy theories regarding chemical agents deposited in the sky for nefarious purposes. So everybody's probably familiar with chemtrails. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on those. But if you're not, conspiracy lore has it that chemtrails, reportedly distinct from normal contrails, which is what they actually are, left by airplanes due to their color, crisscrossing pattern, and the length of time they linger. That's a big one. People will see contrails in the sky that are just sticking around too long. Like they don't like them in their neighborhood and they look suspicious. And so they decide that they're chemtrails. So, anyway, conspiracy lore has it that these chemtrails are used by government agencies for things like weather modification, solar radiation management, population control, various psyops, biological and chemical warfare, and the testing of biological and chemical agents on humans. So basically, a grab bag of shit that people have just made up, scary boogeyman kind of stuff that could potentially be related to chemtrails, right? So believers in chemtrails posit that they are responsible for causing a variety of respiratory illnesses and other health problems, which obviously, if it was true, would be a huge deal, right? This new bill, not to be left out, it has inspired
oh,
Pennsylvania
jeez.
state senator. Yeah, this is the best. Doug Mastriano, I think. I'm not from Pennsylvania, you know. Anyway, it's inspired this this state senator in Pennsylvania to declare that he's going to introduce similar legislation in his own state, which is just fantastic. Naturally, this has motivated scientists to speak out about the purported chemtrail conspiracy. You know, there's this guy named Alan Robick, who's a climate science professor at Rutgers. And basically, I'm not going to read his whole long quote, but what it boils down to is there's no such thing as chemtrails, right? That's his stance. So don't start yelling at me. I don't know if chemtrails are real or not. I don't see any good evidence for it, but that's not the same as saying that they couldn't be real. Anyway, so yeah, he comes out and says no, like none of this shit is fucking real. However, a decent number of people actually believe in him. You know, there's a survey 5 years ago that found that 8% of America 8% of Americans strongly believe that the government is using chemicals to control the population through chemtrails. And an additional 11% of people said that they somewhat believe in chemtrails. And back to that word, because that word is important. So, as I mentioned, the Tennessee bill left it out. So did the Pennsylvania bill. So they both specifically decided not to name chemtrails, not to mention that phenomenon or purported phenomenon by name. Instead, focusing on solar geoengineering. So, if you don't know
Oh
what solar
God.
geoengineering is, here's a quick rundown. That actually refers to proposed approaches to combat climate change by reflecting solar radiation back into space, right? So, what's interesting about that is they didn't even do the thing they were trying to do if what they were trying to do was not look like crazy people who believe in conspiracy theories. Because from that standpoint, I get why they would leave out chemtrails, but mentioning solar geoengineering just gets you back firmly into conspiracy theory land because um, the connections that conspiracy theories have already made between chemtrails and solar geoengineering, right? So like these things are already so hopelessly entwined at this point that you can't mention one in something like this without strongly implying the other. So just by saying that you know it's really about my God, solar geoengineering. I know, right? Why is that so hard to say? So yeah, really by even by saying in this context that it's about solar geoengineering, um, obviously it's about chemtrails, right? To the point where like there was an article. This was interesting. There's an article entitled "Chemtrails Conspiracy
Thanks.
Theory" that was published by David Keith's research group out of Harvard, and I feel for these guys. I really really do because because these researchers like this article, and I will read this part because it is interesting. Um, this article just straight up states like because of the apparent similarities between the proposed implementation methods for solar geoengineering, such as injecting reflective particles into the stratosphere, and the alleged methods for producing chemtrails, some people have linked the notion of chemtrails to the study of solar geoengineering. However, the researchers continue, and this is a good point. We are confident that there is currently no active program to actually test or implement solar geoengineering. And they would fucking know because it's their whole job. And furthermore, we have not seen any credible evidence that chemtrails exist. If we did see any evidence that governments were endangering their own citizens in the manner alleged in the chemtrails conspiracy, we would be eager to expose and stop any such activities because of fucking course they
Right.
would. Like, do the people who believe in this stuff have any friends who are scientists or even hell have like undergraduate degrees in STEM fields or anything? Scientists are not like cackling maniacal supervillains waiting around, to doom humanity. That's not what they fucking do. Anyway, so thoughts.
This is still a thing. I mean, people still like this is still a big conspiracy that people believe in. Um, that's shocking to me. I thought we were like over that one, you know? I thought we were on to
No, it's
birds aren't real,
it's
you know?
enough of a thing in Tennessee for them to fucking propose and pass legislation about it.
Jesus.
So,
Let me say this. Let me preface by saying this. I'm going to tell everybody right now. I do not fucking trust the government, and you shouldn't either.
of course not.
However, you should trust common sense and critical thinking on your own accord by using tools, again, to research said topics. Um, it doesn't mean that everything, just me saying I don't trust the government doesn't say that every single thing that they do is untrustworthy. This is definitely one of those things. Like, I've never bought the concept of chemtrails. I looked into it pretty early on and realized that it was bullshit, and I was like, oh, okay. Moved on with my life, and I guess I was mistaken when I thought other people did too. Uh, because here we are in 2024.
Right.
Um, which is super embarrassing. Has the government used planes to attack people in the past? Absolutely. Look at World War II. Uh, it's a great example of it. Other things too. I mean, there's definitely been chemical warfare and things like that. Actually, we'll have planes that will go in and effectively drop things like vaccinations on wildlife and different nature reserves and things like that. But that is to, of course, sustain the population of the animals that are in there. Could they be doing that to us? Well, no, I don't think so. Because if they were doing that to us, why are we going and getting fucking flu shots every year or whatever? They'd just be dumping it on us.
Right.
If they were using it for population control, we wouldn't have hit 8 billion. We were already way overpopulated at 7. Now we're at 8. None of that really makes any sense. They don't need to create diabetics. Y'all are doing that shit on your own. By eating too many carbs or whatever. That it just doesn't, they don't need to do this stuff. We're already doing it. There's no need for it. There's just much easier ways to poison the population. Pat used to mention all the time, these motherfuckers have control of the water supply. Like they could put whatever the fuck they want in it, and they don't.
Sure. Sure.
Like we're still
Yeah,
fine.
well, then you get into, well, now speaking of the water supply, then you get into conspiracy theories like fluoride in water.
Oh
Did you know that fluoride is right now, as we speak, calcifying your pineal gland to prevent you
no,
from like achieving the next higher vibrational dimension and realizing your psychic abilities or
not my
some
pineal
awesome shit?
gland. I use that.
Yeah. No, I know. It's super necessary, or else you're never going to achieve the next vibrational
God,
frequency.
that explains a lot.
I know.
Fuck.
Yeah, right.
Um,
I didn't want to say anything, but now that you mentioned it,
you know,
I'm a little worried about your vibrational
I
frequency.
saw somebody that was like, what about like cavemen and like dental care, right? Like they didn't have what we have, right? And
They didn't have refined sugars though either.
exactly, they had a different diet than we did. And also, yeah, they died all the fucking time due to abscesses and bullshit at the age of
Right.
16.
Oh, for sure.
That was pretty normal. Anyway, that's a totally different topic. But yeah, this is so silly. What do you think is going to come of it? Do you think it's? I mean, because it's if we can't spray shit in the sky, like I said, we'll use this for wildlife. And is it going to affect that?
One would assume, unless there's a special like exception made.
Right. I mean, is that going to be an issue then? And then, now we have to kind of deal with all these animals getting sick with things that we almost eradicated because we were vaccinating them for it and then having whole populations die off. Um, we did a story on this was probably about a year or two ago on the show where I think it was in India, somewhere in India, where they did do cloud seeding because they had gone through such a fucking massive drought that
Hmm.
I mean it had to happen. And that's kind of the plus side of stuff like of things like this is that we kind of need
Yeah.
it. I mean, it's to the point to where we are so fucking artificial and we kind of have to artificially recreate nature now. And that's not a bad thing if we want a planet to still exist in 100 years. You know,
Well, like a planet habitable by us,
right?
yes.
Yeah, um,
Like the fucking planet's fine. It's not going anywhere. Will there be human beings on it in 1,000 years? We'll see.
right. I mean, you get the people that are like, "Oh, you shouldn't play God or whatever," and it's like, but again,
What, like we have been for the past 5,000, 10,000
right?
years?
Let's just go back to what we were saying in the beginning here. If you just mind your fucking business, like it's not going to hurt you. You know?
Yes.
It would actually only benefit you if you just minded your fucking business.
Let people who know better than you do about
Yes,
things handle those things.
exactly, exactly. We
That's,
have
and I know people are going to twist that into some bootlicker shit, but it's not. It's just not being a fucking
right,
moron. Like you don't go to the dentist and tell them how to fill your fucking
right.
cavities, do you? No, because they're the goddamn dentist. Like you don't go to the doctor and be like, no, no, no. I think that this is how this is how you're supposed to sew this fucking wound up. No, just let the fucking doctor do it.
Yeah.
Good
And
God.
question things. Absolutely. Go, well, why are we doing this? What does this affect if we do this? Ask those questions. But when they give you a solid explanation, don't go, "Nah, I don't believe that."
Yes. That's a better point. You're absolutely right. You people should question everything, but yeah, at the end of the day, questioning everything doesn't do you any good if you're too stupid to accept the
Right.
answer. So, or stubborn, or
Whatever,
whatever.
right, whatever the case is. Yes, question, get the answers, ask your own questions, to get those
Yes.
answers. That's perfectly fine and normal. It's fine to have a conversation about these things, but you have to also be receptive to receiving answers. You can't just be like, well, I asked my question and leave it at that. I mean,
Right.
what's the point then? I don't, you know
I did my part by asking a question. Now I'm going to believe whatever the fuck
right.
I want.
So I don't know. Let's see where this goes. Like I said, I'd like to see how it affects things. I unfortunately have no say, and how it goes. But then what are they going to do about contrails? You can't get rid of those.
Nothing. It's all bullshit. I would be surprised if the Tennessee governor didn't sign
Yeah,
it. What it seems like to me is one, some political fuckery to just distract people and make it look like they're doing anything useful when in fact they're probably spending all of their time making sure nothing actually useful fucking passes. But beyond that, like they could be trying to appeal to their base by like just taking climate change denial to a whole nother
yeah,
level, by being like, look, climate change isn't a thing. And it's such not a thing that we're going to ban something that could even potentially help it. And our reason for fucking banning it is because of this conspiracy theory that probably isn't even fucking true.
right.
And I guarantee there are people in Tennessee who are just like, fucking finally, government doing something
Oh my
useful.
god.
So, yeah, enjoy.
Well, thank you for bringing it up. It does need to be talked
It
about.
was a fun article.
Man,
Yeah.
that is some retro news. We got throwback Mothman photos. We got
Oh,
flying
yeah.
saucers, chemtrails. Wow, it's been a day. But
Right? It's like I'm 15 again. I'm back in the 90s. All of my favorite weird 90s fucking topics coming up.
it's great. Well, let's not stop there. Why don't we go ahead and bring it all the way back to 1897?
Speaking of the 90s,
Speaking of the
yeah.
90s, yeah. That's man, what a year to be alive that was. 1897. It was wild. I hear. I'm gonna tell you guys about it. So I guess before I get into it, you guys see the title of the episode here. You know kind of what we're going to talk about. Tobias, what's your history with this story?
I have been familiar with this one for a long time now. It's one of those classic UFO cases, and it's fascinating because there's just enough there to really pique your curiosity, right? There's just enough there for you to go, oh man, maybe, right? But ultimately, like for me, I think it's just another one of those. It's just another one of those stories, and I'll get into it later.
Sure.
But it's based on a 19th century news report, and so if anybody has heard me talk about those before, that probably gives you some idea of where I end up landing on this one.
It'll get interesting, that's for sure. I agree. It's another one of those stories. I guess I'm starting to realize that my expertise in this field happens to be places that like you can go to and like touristy stuff, like things that that have manifested into a tourist trap. Because this was kind of one of those things that I found out, oh, it's somewhere I can go see this. And that's kind of how I fell onto it. So let's get into it. So April 17th, 1897. Weird thing happened early in the morning. People reported seeing I love the descriptor here because you don't hear this either, but except for in these old stories. Reported seeing a cigar shaped object in the sky. We don't call it that anymore, do we?
Not often,
No, now they're Tic Tacs.
right?
Isn't that weird? Um, just like when we changed UFO to UAP, I guess it's a cover up. It's
It's always going to be UFO to me.
Right, exactly. Yes. So anyway, they saw a cigar-shaped object in the sky. Kind of seemed like it was struggling a little bit. Seemed like it actually slowed down to about 12 miles per hour before ultimately crashing into a windmill, which ultimately took it down to the ground. The windmill was situated on a property owned by the local judge, J.S. Proctor. Okay. And the craft was all fucked up. Well, not just the craft was fucked up, but there was a pilot to the craft, obviously, who was mangled beyond repair, I'm assuming. Allegedly, several people in the town saw this. This kind of the only real record that we have of this happening was from an article that was published in the Dallas Morning News at the time. And so all of those descriptions are coming from this one article. In the article, it stated that a Army Signal Service officer, T.J. Weems, what a name. I'm having a hard time believing that any of these people are real, right? J.S. Proctor,
Right.
T.J. Weems, you know. Anyway, he came by and he said, yeah, this guy is he's not of this world, is the description that he used. I believe he called him a Martian.
A native. I'm looking at the actual article right now. He he gave it as his opinion that he was a native of the planet
Nice,
Mars.
nice.
Yeah.
Well, I guess has Weems been there? Has he?
I mean, Weems is a Martian expert. Obviously, you weren't there. Okay.
You know what? How does what do natives from Mars look like? I don't. Okay, good for you, Weems. Maybe we need to hear his
Right.
story. So
They had photography at this time too, by the way.
they
So
did.
so they chose not to take a
They
picture.
did. Well, you know, it was obviously very gory. What I'm picturing is like burnt to a crisp. You know what I mean? And several pieces, guts hanging out. Well,
That would make a fantastic
it
photograph.
would. You could frame it, and put it in your living room,
I
or
would.
right in your dining room, right above the dinner table.
I'd carry a wallet sized one around to show
Show
people.
everybody. Weems took this picture. TJ Weems. Anyway, so this craft lands and it crashes, and there's a fucking Martian on board, allegedly. And everybody's like, oh shit, it's a Martian. What do we do with this guy? So they decide to go ahead and take the pilot, and they gave him Christian rites, and then buried him in at the Aurora cemetery. Now they also allegedly buried some of the craft with him, and then this part I don't get. They take the wreckage and they dump it into the well on Judge Proctor's property.
Yeah, right down the damn well.
You know, fuck this. We don't need
That's
this.
your drinking water.
Right. This came from Mars. You know, we don't. I'm just, let's just throw it down a well. Who's gonna miss it? They don't want to study this or anything. This isn't important. You know, fucking yeah. Throw it down the well, and that was that. So that's the initial. This is the initially what happened here. Um, let's talk a little bit about 1897 and kind of what was going on at the time. Um, Tobias, go ahead and once again tell people about yellow journalism.
Oh, sure. So if you're not familiar, the 19th century and early 20th century really was just rife with this, and it was bullshit, basically made up stories. And so newspapers would concoct stories for a number of reasons. Like popular reasons would be to sell newspapers, or they would do so in collusion with their town to try to attract attention to the town, to try to promote tourism. So you would see a lot of like lake monster stories, for instance. Those were very popular. Any town that had a resort on a lake had to have a lake monster. You had to, because if you didn't, that other resort that did have the lake monster was going to get all the damn
Mhm.
tourists, right? So you'd even have towns competing with each other to one up like each other's stories. So if you had a lake monster that was 30 feet long and looked like a snake with the head of an alligator. Well, we had one that was 50 feet long and it actually came out of the fucking lake and ate my dog. Like it would be shit like that. And so these news reports, when you see them now, it's not like today where people kind of take for granted, hey, I saw this in the news, like CNN reported it or whatever. And so sure, I'll follow up on it some, but I can have the basic assumption that what is being reported is at least based somewhat in fact,
Mhm.
right? You can't do that when you look at these old fucking newspaper articles. You just can't, because they don't have to be based in fact. People were just doing whatever the fuck they wanted. And so what'll happen is you'll get people who will find these old articles and be like, see, proof. I told you. Like there's this paper from the 19th century and they wrote about fucking Spring Hill Jack or a fucking UFO crash or whatever. And they said they were Martians. They were shooting lasers out of their eyes or whatever. Well, you can't use that as evidence because it's not good evidence because people just made shit up. So, anyway, yellow journalism.
So, one big thing that happened in the same year, between 1896 and 1897, there was what some people would refer to as a flap. This time period is kind of known as the airship mystery.
Oh yeah, flying
You
airships.
had these in abundance. Nowadays we know and can look back and we can find at least over 1,200 reports of these airships in the sky. And this was a big fucking thing because we didn't have planes in 1897. you know,
True.
this wasn't a thing for us. Now, I did kind of go back and track a little bit about Zeppelins and, where they were at the time. The first Zeppelin wasn't actually flown until the year 1900. However, they had been in development since the 1850s. But you still weren't seeing a bunch of these. You weren't seeing 1,200 in a year. That wasn't happening. So you have this really weird time of yellow journalism going along, as well as this weird boom of these legitimate UFOs. Things flying around in the sky that we can't explain because we literally don't have the technology to even do that. And then you had in the 1960s to the 70s, and the night over here in the 1900s, you had this boom of ufologists who you had this flap of ufologists who found these articles and fucking made their whole entire living off of it. Made that their whole personality. And so it gets kind of murky because it's hard to know who to trust, what's factual, what's not. Within the airship mystery, which I think one day, of course, we should do a whole episode covering it. There are some really credible
Sure.
stories out there, police officers and army members and things like that were seeing these things. All 1,200 reports? Well, probably not, right? You'd probably get one credible report. It's reported on in the local news. And then the next town over sees, oh, well, they're reporting a UFO. We should report a UFO. And then somebody's like, yeah, but we didn't have any UFO. And they go, shut up. Yeah, we did. And they print the story anyway. you know?
Right.
That probably happened a lot. This incident, it very much follows that timeline. Again, you're talking April 1897. So,
It was right in the middle of this of the second airship
yeah.
wave.
And so it is very topical for the time. This was a very hot thing to do. And so, the issue comes in what with when you try to dig back and look at these reports. When we had Chad on last week, he kind of talked about the Van Meter visitor, and it happened kind of, I think it was 1903, so kind of around that time. And
Sure.
but he talked about, of course, you read the articles and you're like, oh, it's ridiculous, but then you start backtracking who these people were, and you're talking about really credible figures in the community. Digging into those, the Crosswick monster, one of my favorites. It kind of comes off as one of those yellow journalist articles, and then you find out that there are actually people tied to this, and they had a story after that. um
Well, I will say this though, like just because there are people in the community tied to the story doesn't mean that it wasn't concocted just to promote the
that's true.
town. In fact, if you're talking about people, upstanding people in this town, they it's not like the newspapers were the only people in on this or the only people who knew that it was happening. anybody with a vested interest in promoting their town was
Right.
all about it. And most people reading the newspapers even were like, well, that's obviously fake, but it's fun, just like today.
Mhm.
This is obviously fake, but it's fun, so who cares, right? So, like, just because there are some, quote unquote, upstanding townspeople attached to one of these newspaper stories doesn't mean that it wasn't made up, because they were probably in on it because they were like, hey, this is all a big joke. Everybody knows this shit isn't fucking real anyway, but hey, it'll get our town some attention.
Right.
And that's awesome because we all benefit.
Absolutely, if they have a reason, especially during those times, entrepreneurship was big, uh, in that time period. Most of the time, you owned your own business. You want your business to do well. You want people to come to your town to buy shit from your business or services or whatever. Absolutely, you're right. The difference in this compared to the other things is that we have physical evidence, allegedly, right? The article
Yes, that is fascinating.
leaves us going, look, this pilot was buried at the Aurora Cemetery. The debris was chucked into the well of Judge Proctor. Like, we know who that is. We know where Judge Proctor lives. And I think this is why this story has definitely stood the test of time as its own thing instead of just being thrown in with the airship mystery stories, and has kind of, turned into its own. So then what happened, right? What's the deal with the body? Like, what's going on there? Where the fuck is the debris? Um, so the property itself was actually purchased. So the windmill and the well are, was purchased in 1935 by a man named Brawley Oates. What a fucking name, Brawley Oates.
Just add that to the list of awesome old timey
Awesome,
names.
right? These people. It's better than Weem. I'll tell you, that's not my favorite on this list. Which, of course, I'll tell you, I did try to verify all these people's identities. Judge J.S. Proctor, real person. Brawley Oates, real person. T.J. Weems, couldn't verify. Couldn't verify. He
Mm.
allegedly, was stationed out of the Fort Worth base there. Couldn't verify that he was real. Um, doesn't mean he's not. It's just that I couldn't find that he was. So anyway, Brawley Oates buys the property specifically because of the interest vested in this crash. He's curious, Well, he goes and cleans out the debris from the well. Okay, because he wants to use it as a drinking source, as water. It's his well, his property, and he cleans out the debris. I don't know what he did with it. I can't find any resource that says that he did anything with it, or what he might have done with it. There are some rumors, but he takes it out, and then a couple of years later, or down the line, sometime he starts to develop really bad arthritis in his hands. Like, it fucking mutates his hands, and he blames it directly on the contaminated well water. I don't know. You know, I don't think arthritis works that way, but maybe it does. Fucking not
No,
a I'm not an arthritic doctor. So, could be, you could get it from water. At least that's what this guy thought. So anyway, so it was so
right.
dangerous. I mean, he believed in this so much that he actually ended up having the well sealed up in 1945. And, he put a fucking concrete slab over it and an outhouse. I don't know why. Um just to literally shit on the only evidence that we could potentially
Wait,
have.
wait. Was it an outhouse or an outbuilding? Because um, I I remember it being reading that it was an outbuilding. So not like an outhouse, more like a
No,
shed,
an
kind of.
outbuilding. I read outhouse.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, conflicting
Well,
reports. Who knows?
exactly. Because there are other reports to this day. I watched a couple of different news reports on the area, and like there's like one guy who's like touring people. He's like, "That's the well," and it's got like a fucking chain link fence over top of it, and it's like, okay, I thought that it was covered, like sealed and covered. Like, now there's been two windmills found on the property, and somebody came forward and said there was none. And I mean, so anyway, very conflicting reports. I would like to believe it's an
Sure.
outhouse.
It's more fun to believe
Yeah.
that, so let's just go with it because it doesn't really
Could be
matter.
outbuilding, but we'll say outhouse. Like I said, he just was literally wanted to shit on any evidence we may have possibly had. So, again, this story was definitely going forward. Um, there's a particular MUFON people came forward. I'll just say that MUFON investigators allegedly took and investigated some of the claims at the time. Now, of course, they came up with it was inconclusive. However, they did pull two different eyewitnesses, not necessarily eyewitnesses, just they were alive when this happened. One was a 10-year-old
Right.
boy. He said that he wanted to go see it, but he had to go do his chores or something. His dad wouldn't let him until he did his chores. You can't see the alien body until you get your fucking chores done. But said that his
Which is fair.
well, I mean, I don't know, man. My kid didn't have school today because there was a total eclipse. You gotta pick it, but
Do your chores or no
do your
eclipse.
chores.
All I'm saying.
But I think his dad did go and see it. Like he went into town and saw it, and his dad, told him
He
about
went
it.
into town to see like wreckage from the crash because according to the news report, people were just taking pieces of it away. Like a bunch of
Yeah.
people, because like it's 1897. You see this fucking crazy aircraft crash into the local doctor's windmill or whatever, and so yeah, people showed up, and apparently there was all this wreckage, and people were just taking it away. Like I'm going to take a souvenir, and so he went into town, and yeah, there was a supposedly wreckage from the crash that he could see. And what's interesting about it too is if you look, speaking of the wreckage specifically, is the way it was described in that old article. It was said it was built of an unknown metal resembling somewhat a mixture of aluminum and silver, and that the wreckage must have weighed several tons.
Don't we it's okay, okay. It's made of an unknown metal, but don't we know what aluminum and silver are?
Well, it
Oh,
resembling
okay.
somewhat a mixture of aluminum
So
and
it's
silver.
shiny?
So they're just guessing. Yeah, they're like, it's not that heavy, but it looks silvery. So I don't know. That's just like the best way they could describe it, apparently.
Let's talk about aluminum real quick. Um, isn't it crazy that we say aluminum and the British say aluminium? Actually, the whole rest of the world
Aluminium.
says aluminium, right?
It is weird,
It's
yeah.
so weird. I'm like, "What? What did you" But it's my own it's not like, I'm the problem in that situation, you know? Um, I should know better. But we say aluminum, which is definitely not phonetic, right? I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there. And aluminum shows up in Roswell as well. So it's not like, and of course a lot of people
True.
kind of describe this as Roswell, right? This is Texas Roswell, which is weird because it happened first, but okay.
Right. But anytime like a UFO just even like gets too close to the earth, it's whatever that area is
It's
Roswell.
Roswell. Yeah. So, okay. Um I didn't know people were allegedly taking pieces of it, which adds to the mystery even further. Where the fuck are these pieces? I'm guessing someone's.
There's another piece of physical evidence too that I'm surprised nobody kept. It says, and I'm going to quote from the article again: papers found on his
Yes.
person. This is the Martian they're talking about. Papers found on his person, evidently the record of his
Hmm.
travels, are written in some unknown hieroglyphics and cannot be deciphered. So what the fuck happened to that? Did nobody keep the record of his travels written in unknown hieroglyphics? I would
It's
have. What what do they look
it's
like?
written in Martianium is the language of the Martian. Yeah,
Martianium,
Martianium.
or is that Martianum?
Martian.
If you're from America,
Probably, yeah. um, yeah, no, that is, and that kind of piece of the story, like, is like nobody ever talks about that. Like that is,
that's true.
that is like, if you know that he had like flight logs or whatever the fuck, journal, I don't know what he had. You know what these writings, these papers.
Right.
Then like I know about you that you know your shit because this isn't like in the modern day lore of it. Nobody ever talks about these papers.
It's an Aurora, Texas deep
It
cut.
is,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's very unfortunate because that seems very fucking important, and it just disappeared. I
Right.
blame Weems. Um,
Fucking TJ Weems
clearly.
really Weemsed it.
Weemsed it. Yeah, Weemsed it up. Um, clearly he took these papers and took them to the government, and you know? It's a cover up again, just like
It's true.
Roswell. You know. But yeah, no, I mean, so we've got all this physical evidence. In a body. We've got a fucking body. There's a body right now
Yeah.
laying in Aurora Cemetery in Aurora, Texas. That is allegedly an alien body laying there to this day. And whenever I talk to people about this, because I'm that person, right? I go to a fucking party, I talk about the Aurora UFO crash of
What else
1897,
are you going to talk
right?
about?
you know, and they're like, well, okay, but why don't they just like dig it up? And
Oh, sweet summer
yeah,
child.
that's a really good question. Why don't they? We'll get there, but there are some things that have happened in this time period. So we are talking about the 10-year-old boy. There's also a 15-year-old girl who I believe I don't remember if she did see the wreckage or not. I can't remember if she saw it or
Well, her parents went to the crash site, but she wasn't allowed to
why. That's what I'm saying.
because she was only 15 and her parents were dicks.
I'm saying that this site, this corpse, had to have been like fucked all the way up, like for nobody to let their kids go and see
Right.
it. Just completely indistinguishable. Which is pretty gnarly. Um,
It was 1897, so, like, it wasn't that its intestines were hanging out or anything, but it did have a huge boner, and
he
that
was
was
naked,
too
naked as
far.
fuck.
They're like, his pants came off in the wreck? Well, somebody hide the children."
And it was bigger than any man's on the planet, so
Oh, boy.
they didn't want to set
Yeah,
those
you get that Martian
expectations.
envy.
Yeah. That had to have been it. But yeah, so MUFON investigated this. They found these reports, which is something, right? It's better than what we had previously, even though we allegedly have fucking flight logs and bodies and wreckage. But it was something. But they ultimately found it was pretty inconclusive. Um, One of the MUFON investigators took off and did his own fucking thing, and he's been doing his own fucking thing. I don't know if he's still alive. I think he is.
Well, the original MUFON investigation we're talking about, I don't know if we mentioned it, but it was conducted in 1973.
Right.
So that was a
Yeah,
while
there.
ago.
Yeah, it was. So this might have been a different guy. There's some guy who goes on coast to coast and talks about this incident a lot. He lives kind of near the area. It's kind of become his thing. But so after MUFON does their investigation, they also went and tried to find the grave, and they had taken a metal detector and they had actually found potentially a grave with potentially metal. There was a gravestone at the time that had what looked like some type of craft on it. They thought that maybe this was the grave. They had petitioned the cemetery to exhume the grave, at least for the pieces of metal that were in it, not even for the body. They just wanted the pieces of metal, and the cemetery turned it down. Well, then they go back to the grave after that, and it had been moved. Like the headstone was gone, and they weren't detecting the metal that they were before, and it was just everything was weird. And right after that, in 1980, Time magazine comes out with an article about this incident, and they had spoken with a woman by the name of Ida. I think her name is Pages. Pages. I don't know how to say her last name, but she was a resident there at the time during all this. Even though, again, this is 1980, the crash happened in 97, so she's old as fuck, and maybe she was still alive at that time. But she comes out and she says, "Look, this is all a hoax. The guy who wrote the original newspaper article, S.E. Hayden, he made it all up because the town was dying and we needed something here, and so he concocted it all. As a matter of fact, Judge Proctor didn't even have a windmill on his property. That's how ridiculous this is. There's not even a windmill there." And
Gasp.
some people thought that she was a plant, that she wasn't really a resident there, and that this was all kind of a move to get the heat off of the potential gravesite and maybe discovering what was down there. Um, Conspiracy, of course, but I don't know. Like I said, yeah, she could be 83 giving this Time magazine interview. But The thing about it is like Point Pleasant. Okay, there's residents there that fucking hate the Mothman. They hate the story. They think it's all bullshit. Um, they wish that nobody would come there. You can go there and talk to these people. They'll tell you. They'll get mad.
Oh, I'm sure.
And you do have residents that, for whatever reason, hate whatever their town's been known for. And whether or not they believe in it or not shouldn't matter. They should like the fact that their town's getting some publicity, because they're usually dying towns anyway. But that's just my personal opinion. I don't have to live there and put up with it, so I can't really say that much about it. Could Ida have been one of those people? Sure, you know, and she's just trying to kind of put this to rest. Could she have been somebody that knew a little bit of something about something? Yeah, absolutely. But she would have like just been a baby at the time that this happened, at minimum, right?
Yeah. Right, right. I mean, yeah, like I'm seeing her age, what was she, 86
Okay,
something in 1980. So yeah, she's maybe what, 3 years old when this happens. But that doesn't mean that she wouldn't have grown
with the
up.
story, right?
Yeah, like after really in the immediate aftermath. Um, and so she would still probably know if it was made up. Like if she had grown up with everybody around her, all of the adults just kind of like, side eyeing each other and chuckling about this UFO story that they all fucking made up, that would be obvious. Like she would know that.
Yeah,
So
that's
I think it's possible.
that's true. I could take it or leave it. I don't fucking know her. I didn't interview her.
Yeah, who knows? She's not alive now. It's not
Yeah,
like you can go ask
yeah,
her.
she's definitely not alive. So this has now, I guess I'll just kind of jump to current day and like where we're at with it. Um, why don't we just dig up the grave? Where is the grave? That's been a big question. So there was a headstone for a long time, and there probably was, but it kept getting vandalized, stolen. People do that shit, right? They've done that shit with serial killers, and people do that to graves. It's terrible, but they do. Um, we don't really know where the grave is. Some people say that there's a tree there in the cemetery, I guess I skipped over this part. The pilot, right? The alien pilot, they've named him Ned, and I have no fucking idea where this name comes from. But that's his name. Tobias, do you know where the name Ned comes from?
I do
Yeah,
not.
that just kind of seems like it. They just kind of gave him a name. I don't know.
Yeah, they had to name him something, so it was just the first thing that came to
Yeah,
mind.
not extraterrestrial dude. I mean, what does Ned stand for? I don't know. But Ned. And anyway, some people think he's buried under this big tree that's there in the cemetery. A local resident there actually purchased a big rock and put it there. So there is kind of a marker. 'Cause she believes that's where he's buried. But then also goes on to say that they don't know where he's buried, so she really has no idea. First of all, that's an issue. We've had people go out. There's a couple of documentaries or TV shows or whatever that have gone out to this area. I've asked the townspeople. There was one crew, I didn't take down the name of it, but they had kind of gotten an idea of where they think it is based off of the other graves in that cemetery and when people were buried there. So other people born in the late 1800s, which is a pretty good guess. So, I mean, at this point, because we can't, nobody there at the cemetery can point and go, that's it, that's his grave. We can't just go digging up everybody. Like, it doesn't work that way,
Right.
you know? And even if we knew, you know, uh, unfortunately, and I understand what people think about it, but there are people that have feelings about how we treat the dead. And so, even if we knew where it was, it's not ridiculous for anybody to go, yeah, no, that's sick. We're not going to dig that grave up, you know?
Oh, for sure.
Um, I'm all about it. Fucking give me a shovel. I think that if we thought that there was an alien really buried there, like for real, like we thought that, I think it's silly not to. But again, we don't know. We don't know where it's at. There are like we do have sonar and equipment and radars and things like that we can try to maybe see what's down there, but it's not perfect. And again, you don't know if you are getting a hit on something that's just down there. You could get a hit on metal that's down there. It could be a metal pot from from the early 1900s. We don't fucking know. It could be part of a spaceship. But again, the issue comes into play if you start digging up fucking people to find it. Well, then you kind of become the monster, and I get that. So there's that. The debris itself. So the lady comes forward. She goes, "No, there's no windmill even on the property." And one of these fucking TV crews come out and go, "Oh,
UFO Hunters, I
is
think
that who it
is
was?"
what you're thinking of.
Well,
Yeah, November 19, 2008 episode of
there
UFO
was a
Hunters.
show, and then I think also a documentary crew. So I can't remember which is which.
Television documentary,
Oh, okay.
UFO
Just UFO
Hunters.
hunters. Gotcha. So
Yeah.
they come out and they go, well, no, actually, there like here's the windmill base. Like we found it. And they go out and they find, like I think they're the ones that also go find that well. And they did test the well water, and of course there's no
Yep.
debris in it, but they tested the well water and it did have high levels of aluminium in it. So
True.
um
So yes, take that as you will, I guess.
what does that mean? I don't know. Rumors have spread that the debris was moved from the well to also being buried on the property there somewhere, and who knows by who. It's my understanding that the grandson of Brawley Oates, and I think his name is Timothy Oates, now owns the Proctor property. And he's pretty open. He's like, "Yeah, come dig up my yard or whatever." Like, he's totally cool with people doing, whatever they got to do. Um,
Yeah, so just show up unannounced at his property. Do whatever you want. Asher said
yeah,
you
drink
could.
the water, touch it. It'll deform your fucking hands if that's what you're into. Tell him I sent you. And do it very threatening, right? Please.
Just middle of the night, just show
Yeah,
up.
just go over there. Like, we're here.
But seriously, stay the fuck off that guy's
Yeah, no, no,
property.
no, no. I mean, you can write him a nice letter or something, ask him. He'll probably let you come
Right.
investigate it if you're nice.
Maybe.
Um,
If you're like credible and you have a production company.
a little bit of money helps. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sure he'll give you a price if you call him and ask him. But it's sad because we started off strong here. Here's all these pieces of physical evidence, and I mean, where the fuck are they now? Um, what do you think,
You're
Tobias?
right. I mean, closest thing we got was that UFO hunters crew finding evidence of a water mill like around this old well. So that refutes Edda's
Mhm.
claim. And then, as part of that investigation as well, they reportedly used ground penetrating radar to find an unmarked grave near other graves dated from the 1890s. But of course, it wasn't like exhumed or anything, and it had deteriorated to the point where like they weren't really able to discern what was in it. Certainly not to the level of knowing if it was a fucking Martian or
Right.
not. So that remains, just another piece of unexplained or unidentified potential evidence, but really doesn't prove
Right.
anything. And so it's a frustrating case. It's a confounding case. It's got a lot going for it. Either way, like I wouldn't blame anybody for suspecting there might be something here, and I wouldn't blame anybody for thinking that the whole thing was fucking made up
Right.
just to attract attention to this town. Either one of those could be
Yeah.
true. I think.
I agree with that. I think there's solid evidence for both. And of course, because I like to party, I want to believe that this happened,
Right.
Of course I do. To the point, like I said, fucking give me a shovel. I'll go dig this motherfucker up. We'll figure out who he is. Um if we find him, let's do it. But again, that could just be an unmarked grave of a person. And if it's a person, then it's like, well, now I'm the asshole. But even
Right.
if
You just dug up somebody's
Right,
grandma.
even if it's an alien, like, that still sounds shitty, but again, for science, right? For science, we can do this. You know?
Sure.
Um, yeah, I think that, I mean, I really could take it or leave it either way. I mean, just one, I think on either side, one solid piece of evidence could sway my opinion easily, because I'm so on the fence about it. It's a very fun story. I like to talk about it because it's neat, and it's definitely one of those, is it? Isn't it?
Sure.
Who knows? Um, And I enjoy that. I want to go to the Aurora Cemetery and just go see for myself, just to see it because I
Sure.
love a gimmick. That's my favorite.
They have a plaque up if you
They do.
go. There's a little plaque that tells about the whole incident. One of the things I think that makes this story compelling to people and that has uh, kept it around for so long is not just the mention of all that physical evidence, although you make a good point, and I think that's definitely part of it. But because they describe this otherworldly craft and being. So many of these 1890s airship flaps describe human occupants and relatively normal airships, or normal for the
Mhm.
time, at least things that they could conceive of, right? And so to the point where, like, a lot of people, if they were entertaining the idea that these airships could be real, thought they were a human invention. Like, most people weren't sitting around going, "Oh,
Right.
we're being invaded by
Yeah.
Martians." So they really just thought that, like, again, if they believed in them at all, they would have thought something like, "Oh, there's a mysterious inventor who is working on airships, and this is just them going out and testing it, or whatever." So what makes this one particularly interesting, I think, is that it's definitely not fucking that. It's whatever it is, it's not that. And so from a modern ufological standpoint, to look back on something from that era where somebody is clearly describing this being from another world, or at least claiming that what it was this being from another world instead of a totally normal human inventor or
Mhm.
something, is it's compelling, it's fascinating, it's titillating,
Yeah.
right? Like, it really gets your imagination going. So I don't. It's it's no surprise why people are still fascinated by
Yeah.
this.
I think it's a good one. Well, and I feel like these UFO stories aren't really talked about much anymore. Because I think that people understood now in hindsight what was going on when we kind of dug up these old records of these airships, and that it does have a pretty good chance of just being a lot of yellow journalism and just made up stories. But I don't think that that is 100% right either. Again, the world's not black and white. It just doesn't work that way.
Sure,
And I think that, really, are in ufology now, I mean, we don't really talk about anything before Kenneth Arnold, you know? Just don't. And I think that's unfair. Um, I think we should talk about this stuff, whether we think that there's something to it or not. I mean, I think that it's okay to revisit it, now with 2024 knowledge, and kind of break it apart now, as much as we can anyway. But that is the third theory. Let's talk about that. The third theory is that, guess what? This fucking happened. This totally, absolutely happened. And a craft fucking hit this windmill and went down, and there was a pilot and everything, except that it was man-made and it was human. Again, I did look back. I mean, the shape of it that we're talking about is very Zeppelin shaped. And when we see that we had been developing blimps from the 1850s, this could have been an experimental craft. And it
sure.
could have been part of maybe Fort Worth's situation. And that's fucking why old Weems was there. And he didn't want to disclose that we had this craft. So he goes, "Oh, it's an alien." You know? That's the cover up. He covered it up with an alien story.
I mean, that's what people think Roswell was, or at least some
Yep.
people, that they were trying to cover up an actual experimental government project by, or at least initially, by saying that it was a fucking recovered disc or
Yeah.
something, because that was not as bad as the Russians knowing that we were testing this spy
Right.
balloon. Which, I get, like, that makes sense. So yeah, I mean, that's an interesting possibility. I think it's definitely worthy of discussion. I think it deserves to be included when people talk about this, um, because there are a couple of possibilities there. Maybe now the reason it gets weird, of course, is because of what's described in that article, right? So, an airship that we would have been capable of flying at that time, even an experimental one, wasn't made of, it wouldn't have been made of metal. There's no way.
True.
um, at least not
Mhm.
entirely, right? And so that's already suspicious. So, and then you get all the other stuff like, oh, he was a Martian and he had this weird, you know, record of his
He had this
travels written
weird
in
boner.
hieroglyphics or whatever. Yeah. And this enormous death boner. I don't know what that was about. Part of rigor mortis, I guess. Don't let the kids see it. That's all I know. But yeah, so you have all this other shit that doesn't sound necessarily like a crashed human
Yeah.
airship. Um, and so, you know, there are a couple of possibilities. Either the wreck was bad enough that everything was so disfigured that people misidentified it and sort of just let their imaginations get the best of them with this, or they were in on it and they were like, oh, well, we need to cover this up. And so, you know, we got Judge Proctor on board, the newspaper reporter, he's on board. And we'll cover it up. We'll just make something up, you know? And then, yeah, okay, sure. And then that really allows for everything that allows for the 1973 witnesses, because maybe they did see that, you know, maybe their experiences were authentic. That allows for Etta, because maybe she grew up hearing about how it wasn't some dude from Mars, you
Yeah.
know. And so instead of that meaning to her that it was a cover up of some experimental airship, she just, because of what she overheard, decided that the whole thing was bullshit. So that, in a way, I think allows for everybody to be right.
Yeah.
So who knows? I think it's a solid explanation.
Yeah. So let's recap. It either happened and it was an alien, or it didn't happen at all, or it happened and it wasn't an alien.
Yes. Pick one of those
One of
three.
those three. And just kind of at the end of the day, because it happened so fucking long ago, and there is no physical evidence now, at least that we can get to, yet. I can't say it'll never happen, but probably not. Um, pick your poison. Fuck. I mean, believe whatever you want to believe. I want to believe it happened and that it was an alien. Why not? That's fun. I like whimsy, so I'm gonna choose the whimsical answer. Tobias, what are you gonna go with?
Okay. Oh man, shit. Like I want to be I want to be cool and I want to be like, oh, it was really an alien, but I think it was probably just
Ugh.
bullshit. Honestly, you know, like if you can choose to believe whatever you want, you might as well believe it's a fucking alien. But yeah, for me, I think that at this point, what I would need to believe that it's an alien would be literally any of the physical evidence that they promised in the
Any of
article,
it.
like any of that,
A
any of
fucking
it,
knob,
just proving,
something.
yeah, just seriously, just proving that Judge Proctor had a windmill means fuck
Yeah,
all.
right.
You know, that means nothing. You know, it doesn't prove that an alien crashed into it, right? So we would need some part of the wreckage, those awesome hieroglyphics, the body, something. And then I would be like, oh shit, is that really a fucking alien? You know, but until then, you know, I probably just will do what I always do and not really believe much of anything, um, because it could be any of those, you know? Obviously, I want it to be the alien, but that doesn't change anything, right? It doesn't change the evidence, doesn't change what we have. So, and right now we have very little.
If we could pinpoint it, would you be for digging up the alien? Yeah.
Yes, 100%. Obviously, like, yeah, like don't throw a dress on it and take it to prom or anything. You know, like there needs to be a certain level of like decorum. You know what I mean? Like, don't weekend at Bernie's it just for fun. But like, yeah, 100% yes.
Yeah.
Like, you know, do whatever you want with my body if it'll help science after I'm
Yeah.
dead, because I'm not going to give a shit. Hopefully, I'm not in it.
Yeah.
You know, like it'll have nothing to do with me at that point.
Yeah, that's my take. Yeah, do
So,
whatever you want. I don't care what you do with my body. I don't give a fucking is. I'm not here. I'm not using it anymore. If you can
right.
benefit from it, great. And I would imagine that aliens are woke enough to have that same idea, but I don't want to make any
Right.
assumptions.
True.
So I don't. Some of them allegedly are Christians, according to some abductees and contactees. So I don't know.
That's my favorite. Where like they're Nordics and they come all the way from, I don't know, Venus or whatever to tell you to accept Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior.
You're like, really? How disappointed would you? You'd be like, really? I'm not gonna shit all
You're
over
like, God
Christianity,
damn
but
it.
again, but
They just give you this copy of Watchtower written in fucking crazy hieroglyphics.
yeah,
It's like, ah, come on.
why?
Right?
Really? You came all this way?
What a bummer.
And they just fucking laugh and flip you off while they get back in the ship. You asshole. But yeah, no, I respect the fact that you believe that it's bullshit. And
I'm choosing not to believe. That's my final answer. Is I'm choosing not
I
to believe
understand
in
why
any of
you
it.
do. I really do. Because I agree. All this evidence, all this physical evidence, none of it is around. So, but
But choosing not to believe also means that I'm not investing in belief that it has to be yellow journalism either.
that's true. That's true. That's fair enough.
So,
Like I
but
said, I'd like to cover the airship mystery in depth a little bit more one day. Maybe talk about some of these sightings that are ridiculous. Maybe talk about some of them that could be credible. Just kind of.
there are some interesting
All right.
ones that very closely mirror like more modern UFO sightings and even like close encounter kind of stuff. And they don't all sound like bullshit. Like some of them are close enough to what we would consider much more credible
Mhm.
sightings that have been reported much more recently that I think they're really intriguing. So yeah, we I think we should definitely
Yeah,
cover
I
them.
think it'd be a lot of fun. But whether the story's bullshit or whether it is real, it's still a fun story. I'll tell you that. It's a good one.
True.
It's
It is a good one.
spicy, and meet me at the Aurora Cemetery under the tree with the big rock, and we'll not dig up any graves that day, but we'll hang
I mean, maybe one if we're up to it. Just hydrate, you'll be fine.
we could probably get at least one done. And then just
Right.
come back yearly, and then eventually they'll catch on and be like, "You two, you can't be coming here anymore."
Right. They just have our pictures up at the cemetery gate.
With one of those like circles with the cross through it, like no.
Right, it's like those people who write bad checks down at the fucking gas station. They have their picture
Yeah,
up telling them you can't take checks from them anymore. Yes, Tobias and Asherz, no admittance into the Aurora Cemetery.
no more. I only hope to be that famous one day, so
True.
we'll get there. But anyway, with that all being said, you guys, what do you think about the Aurora sighting? Let us know. Let us know what you or I'm not the sighting, but the incident, rather the crash and incident. Do you think it was bullshit? Do you think there's something to this? Um, tell us about it, and we'll definitely listen. So, with that being said, guys, we'll see you back here next Wednesday.